Service. What is up, listeners? Welcome back to another episode of the Full Service Podcast. I am Tank Smith, your host. Today is episode 94. Thanks for being here. As always, you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, at Full Service Pod. I am at Tank Funkadelic. If you enjoy the show, make sure you are subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Hit that little heart button. Maybe it's a plus button. Maybe it just says subscribe, and you'll be alerted as soon as those new episodes drop every single Tuesday. Ratings and reviews help so much for visibility for the show, so if you can, hit us with a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, write us a review. I will love you forever, and read it on the air. It's one of my favorite things to do. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is through our Patreon. We are at patreon.com/fullservicepod. Each month you get at least one Patreon exclusive episode. Last month's, June's episode, was friend of the podcast, Alexis Reynolds. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/fullservicepod. Also, if you subscribe to the Outcall tier of our Patreon, you get a free month subscription to the OnlyFans of Sweet Haley Grace and Sophia Soma. Subscribe to the Patreon. Today, episode 94. I am so stoked for today's episode. My guest is new to Atlanta. She just moved here from Oakland, California. She is a companion, a dom. She is a model. She's an artist. She's a phone sex operator. She is a wrestler. Her name, Blythe Rex. We sat down like a couple days ago. It's been like less than a week since we recorded this, so it's new, it's fresh. We discuss her move from Oakland to Atlanta, how she likes the city so far, her love of writing and her passion for telling stories, her start in sex work in 2018, working as a dom in a dungeon in Oakland, going independent, working as a companion, how she discovered wrestling. We have an in-depth talk about wrestling. Y'all are going to love this. We look at how doming has influenced other aspects of her life. We talk fisting, we talk comedy, we talk it all. Oh my God. Y'all are going to love this. Y'all are going to love this. You can find Blythe. She is on Twitter at mistress_Blythe. You can find her on Instagram at The Blythe Show. I'll have links to both of those in the show notes. Click the links. Follow her. Show her some love. I'm going to stop talking. I cannot wait for y'all to hear my conversation today with Blythe Rex. I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Welcome back, listeners. It's Tank Smith. I'm so excited for today's episode. My guest is new to Atlanta. She is a companion. She has worked as a dom. She is a model. She is an artist. She is a wrestler. She is a phone sex operator. She does it all. Blythe Rex. Blythe, thanks for being on the podcast.
Hi, Tank. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting.
Hell yeah. This is great. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Me too.
Listeners, we are currently in Atlanta right now. I'm looking at some beautiful things. Blythe, how do you like Atlanta so far?
I love it. It's very charming. The weather's warm. People are warmer. So far I've just been really... maybe everyone's, coming out of pandemic and stuff and people are a little more frisky. Yeah. But so far it seems like everyone's just enjoying themselves, and it's just like a real fun and friendly city.
Oh yeah, I feel like 2021, people are coming out of this quarantine. The friskiness is probably at an all-time high.
Oh yes,
an all-time high. This is
everyone is in heat. They are ready.
What? How long have you been in Atlanta?
Let's see here, since May 15th.
Oh shit! So like a little over a month.
Yeah, just a little over a month. Yeah.
Oh shit!
So not long at all, really.
Where did you move from?
Oakland, California.
Oh boy! Mm-hmm. Hell
yeah! Yeah.
What's the? I feel like Oakland and Atlanta, night and day.
Yeah, yes and no. I feel that there are a lot of similarities between Oakland and Atlanta in terms of, just people going wild and stuff. Oakland got kind of like a grittier reputation, I guess. But I would say that they're both pretty laid back cities, and it's just, it's more affordable in Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah. California.
I feel like everyone is just so tired from working all the time, so people aren't able to go out as much, and also just coming out of the year we just had, it was, I don't know,
Yeah.
It's like it's unique circumstances or whatever, but I'm having more fun here.
Hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
No shade on my hometown.
Shout out to everybody in Oakland listening to the podcast.
I miss you. But I'm not coming back.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. I might. I'll go back to visit or whatever. But for right now, I'm good. Yeah, I left California like a bat out of hell, to be honest.
Nice.
So,
have you found anything in Atlanta that you like so far? Like anything good to do?
Well, I mean, hanging out at Piedmont Park
Ooh,
is so chill. There's like lots of people there, just having a good time. There's people playing music there, or I'll go like along the Beltline too, because I got to get out and exercise.
I love the Beltline. Beltline's nice.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Like I love people watching.
Are you a scooterer? Or are you not a scooterer?
Not a scooterer.
Not a scooterer.
I'll get on my skateboard sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, now that's dope.
Yeah, we left that part out of the intro, but
yeah, the skateboarder. What the fuck? I love Tony Hawk was one of my favorite video games.
No, I'm just like like a surfer who gets bored. So when I'm on land, I'll push around on the skateboard or whatever. But it's I'm not.
Hell yeah.
Going to the skate park and tearing it up, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the Beltline. I love Piedmont Park so far. There's some beautiful nature too. I've gotten out to some like surrounding areas, and it's just so wonderfully green. I've been going out to the gay bars, which is just great. There's just there's a lot to do. It seems like, and there's good food too. So
the food is happening. The food, you can't go wrong with the food.
Yeah, and I love food. So.
Yeah, it's. You mentioned surfing, right? How long have you been surfing? How long?
Not that long. Let's see here, since 2014.
Okay.
So 6
years ish. Okay.
But not like real consistently.
Okay.
So I have a hard time calling myself a surfer. I'm someone who enjoys surfing.
Okay.
I have my own surfboard, but
I think that's what.
Okay.
It's like if you rent a surfboard,
Sure.
not a surfer. I own a surfboard. You're a surfer.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's something that I'll like go through little phases of, and be a little bit more dedicated at some times and other times not, because it's kind of a situation.
Yeah, it's a lot. You gotta wake up early.
That's what I'm saying.
You gotta be. They never say that if you want to be a surfer, you got to be a morning person also.
No,
that's also part of it.
I mean, if you want the best waves, if you're like me and you don't care, that if you're a low tide, low life like myself, then you'll go out at any time. But yeah, it is better to wake up early.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Yeah. You are a model.
Yes.
How long have you been modeling?
Actually, quite a while. I recently found some pictures of myself as a teenager that I, took at a photo shoot. And I was like, holy shit, I guess I've been modeling like a long ass time.
Oh, that's really nice.
It's like one of those things that I downplay kind of, because it's not like a main source of income. It's not like my main focus necessarily. But especially since I became a sex worker, I've been doing a lot more photo shoots. And then I kind of realized, oh, wait, no, I already have quite a bit of experience in this just from, I don't know, modeling for friends or just random gigs, just like random Craigslist gigs that, like, yeah. So it's at least, I would say, officially I'd say at least 10 years.
Oh, shit. A pro.
Sure. Yes. But even like when I was a teenager, I did a little bit of modeling because I was really into acting when I was a teenager also. And so I would do, like headshots and other types of photo shoots, just because I feel like when you're in the performing arts, you kind of end up doing some modeling anyway, because you have to like do promotional photo shoots or whatever.
Yeah.
So it just happens. It's just modeling happens, they say.
People to see you in public, they're like, "Oh my god, hey, can I get a picture?"
That'll be $20.
Really strutting.
No, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
You are an artist as well. Mm-hmm. What do you create? What's your art form? What's your go to?
I am a photographer.
Okay.
I shoot film,
Oh, nice.
analog, and I'm kind of like artsy photographer, like I'm kind of into surrealist photography, if you
Okay.
will. When I'm shooting for myself, I don't really shoot particular subjects or models. I don't do studio photography. I love doing travel photography, street photography, and surrealist photography, where you're like, what am I looking at? But I think I do it in a way where it's at least interesting, and you're not like totally detached from the photo because you can't figure it out. But I like to do a lot of multiple exposures on the film.
Shit. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff's cool.
Yeah. So it's I wouldn't say that I'm a professional photographer like for hire, because I don't want to shoot what people want me to shoot. I want to just shoot what I'm digging at the time, So it's like you say, oh, I'm a photographer, and people are like, oh, cool. Like they think that you're doing weddings or you're doing other things or fashion or something. And it's like, no, actually, I'm just like a really weird artist.
Because you said photographer, I'm like, well, I need headshots. Like,
I have no lights. Yeah. No lights. I've been shooting a lot of black and white lately.
Okay.
And I'm a writer too. That's the other type of art that I do.
Nice.
So I write creative nonfiction. I'm putting together a bunch of things that I wrote while I was traveling years ago. I traveled for like 10 years in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
Like pretty consistently, kind of on and off, but still like mostly traveling over those 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote a lot while I was traveling, so... Ooh.
What up, Car? How you doing over there?
Vroom, vroom. So that's what I'm working on right now, is putting all that stuff together, because I always had the intention of, like publishing it as like a collection.
Okay.
Lots of fun travel stories, because I was like hitchhiking and
nice.
doing all kinds of different jobs around the world. And
who's the coolest person that you met hitchhiking?
the coolest person I met hitchhiking. Wow. I mean, there's like a lot of cool people actually, because you kind of create the space. There are sketchy situations, but it's really like a very, very small fraction compared to all the cool people who are just like, what's up? Like, sure, I'll take you down the road, I mean, I met a lot of truck drivers who were super cool, just because they had really cool trucks. And like I rode, this was in Chile. We rode from like the top of Chile. I was traveling with my ex, like from the Peruvian border all the way down to Santiago. It was like a 2-day ride with the same truck driver who was just like so chill. He let us, and he had like 2 beds in his truck.
Oh, sweet.
And he had Wi-Fi in his truck.
Wow.
And was like obsessed with Guns N' Roses. So we were just like watching Guns N' Roses videos, like to, like vagabonds just like living it up in this like air conditioned truck with Wi-Fi and 2 beds.
That is amazing.
And we're still friends on Facebook, with the driver.
Hell yeah.
So he was really cool.
Hell yeah.
Let's see here. I'll just leave it at that for
That's
the
amazing,
for the
though.
coolest person for now.
Yeah.
If I think of someone else, I'll let you know.
Yeah, Chile, fucking Guns N' Roses, big ass truck.
Right. It was a tomato truck. He was just hauling like a truckload of tomatoes.
But he's like, I want it. Like he's supposed to be there a day earlier, and he's like, I just want to hang out with you. Y'all can just stay. I'll take it slow.
Totally.
Y'all got the. This is great. What's something you're passionate about?
I am passionate about. I'm passionate about writing. I'm passionate about stories, particularly true stories.
Okay.
Or like, slightly embellished true stories, whatever. Sometimes you can just kind of like spice it up a little bit. Yeah, so that's like my main passion right now, is telling true life stories. And so that's like what I'm writing about. That's also like kind of why I was so stoked to come on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like one of the reasons I like comedy, because I like listening to people's stories. I don't know if you've heard of like There's like a storytelling podcast that's really good. It's like called Risk Storytelling or something.
Okay.
But I just love listening to true stories. And I just think it's like super important, especially as a sex worker, that like, you know, our stories get out there too, you know? And so that's something I'm passionate about, is the truth.
The goddamn truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Blythe, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming to the podcast.
Hell yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I feel like, you know, I always like to start at the beginning of everyone's kind of like sex work journey, right?
Yes.
Do you feel like you can remember your first exposure to sex work at all?
Yes.
What was it?
I was very young. No, seriously. I was like in elementary school.
Okay.
And I remember, like, if my very, very first exposure to sex work is, you know, the back page of this like weekly newspaper in my area, you know? And I was just like, I was always, because when you're a kid, you know that something is going on that you're not supposed to know about, but everyone's really interested in it.
Everyone's so
but
interested.
You're not supposed to know about it. And everyone's like, and so you just, I don't know, I fixated on it, and I was like, oh God, like, oh, sex, like, what's going on? Like, like everyone's covering my eyes, and like, I'm not supposed to know about it. But when I was in elementary school, probably, you know, like 4th or 5th grade, my best friend and I, we would call the phone sex ladies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we wanted to know what was up. Like, we were like, what is the fuss about? So that was like my very, you know, and they would be, you know, just annoyed. They're like, get off that line. Like,
I need a credit card though.
Yeah. And then like in high school, we would go to we would like try to sneak into the adult stores before we were 18. Because, you know, we just like needed supplies. And then I also remember like the local video store by my house. This was like back, you know, before Netflix and even before Netflix was mailing you DVDs. It was
Blockbuster days.
Yeah, this was like the local locally owned, not a chain. And they had that bead curtain and that separate room.
Yeah.
And you know, me, just because of how I've always been, I was like, I don't care about this bead curtain. Like,
this isn't stopping me.
Right? Yeah, I would like go back there and like look around, and my mom would always like, get, come back here, you know. You're embarrassing me. So even like as a young kid, I was always just like very interested in not just like sex, but like professional sex.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, there's like sex and then there's like pros. Yeah. So like I wasn't fully aware or registering in those categories in my mind, but I was like definitely curious like about, you know, porn, about you know, phone sex, about, you know, the beaded curtain room. So like and then in high school, one of my friends, she was a year older than me. She worked at a strip club.
Okay.
And we would go. You know, this is the Bay Area, San Francisco. You know, we were friends with one of the dancers, so we were like, some of us were underage, but we would get in. Yeah. And so that was the first time I went to a strip club. Amazing. I was in high school. And because I am who I am, I wore a fake mustache to the strip club. I wore a cute little dress and a mustache.
I love that. That is amazing.
Just to be totally inconspicuous. And so that was like my first real exposure to like live and in-person sex work. You know, I saw my friend dancing. I was like so happy for her. And at this club, they also did like a live sex show on stage. So at that night, my first night at a strip club, I also saw like 2 women on the stage fucking each other with a double-sided dildo.
Not many kids get to see that live.
Yeah, right?
That's great. Oh my God.
And I was just like, wow, I'm so happy for everyone here, you know?
At that point, do you ever see yourself in that? Or are you just like, this is something it's cool to me? Are you ever kind of putting yourself in that, or is it at that point it's just as simply like, I'm interested, this is cool?
Yes, and like I think like there was definitely like a feeling where it wasn't totally registering to me like what this feeling was like pointing to or whatever,
Yeah.
but like I saw that stuff and obviously it was sexy, so I was like turned on, but not just in a like, oh, I'm aroused way, but in a like looking back retrospectively, it was like maybe because I wanted to do something like that too, and like sometimes I would like think about, definitely like think about it sometimes. I'm like, oh, what would that be like? But it would never go further than that.
Yeah.
It would just be like that kind of like, oh, this is naughty feeling, you know, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't like pull that thread too much, like, okay, like, let me just get back to my work here. Like, so there was like a little tiny bit of a thought at that point in my life, but I didn't, that was like when I was 17, 18. I didn't actually do anything sexy for money until I was 22.
Okay.
And that was just like kind of a one-off thing at that time where I did like an erotic photo shoot.
Okay.
With, like full nude, like way up in there, like like not suggestive, just obvious.
Yeah.
So I did like a one-off photo shoot while I was traveling, actually, because I was needing the money. And I was like, you know what, whatever. Especially when you're in a new environment, you feel a little bit looser sometimes. And like, I'll try something new. I'll do something that's I maybe wouldn't try back home. So that was when I was 22. And then fast forward to when I was 28 is when I actually started working as a sex worker.
How is starting, like when you're 28, what does that look like, you entering the industry?
Okay. Well, it was because of a podcast.
Nice.
It was because of a podcast. So
what's the podcast?
Whoever's out there listening now, it's okay. It was a podcast called Sex Gets Real.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
I've not.
It's hosted by sex workers.
Okay.
And of course, I can't remember her name. She's lovely. But the podcast is called Sex Gets Real. And at the time, I was working in the cannabis industry. So I was up in Northern California, like trimming weed for months on end, just like, sitting in a garage, just listening to podcasts all day and trimming pounds and pounds of weed. So my friend recommended this podcast. She's like, oh, I think you'll like it, and the host talks about all kinds of different aspects of sexuality, not just sex work, but, it's more of a sexuality podcast than just specifically sex work.
Okay.
But she does talk about sex work, and she does talk about dom work. Okay. So that kind of planted the seed as I was listening, and I was, thinking about it more. I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Like I don't want to really trim weed that much. Maybe I could try something else. So after that trim season, I went back to the Bay Area, and my main gig, or another one of my main gigs, was childcare.
Okay.
So, and I was actually out walking some babies in a neighborhood where there's a dungeon. I didn't know there was a dungeon in that neighborhood, but I'm just out walking babies, freshly back from trimming weed, so I kind of still have this stuff in my head about the podcast and sex work and yada, yada, yada. And while I'm walking these babies, I run into an old friend who I used to bartend with. And she's like, oh my gosh, what are you up to? Like, who are these babies? I'm like, oh, I'm just working right now. What are you up to? And she goes, oh, well, I'm about to go work in this house right now.
Did you say it like that?
She said it just like that.
This house? Like, you want to ask me, ask me.
And I just knew immediately. I just said, you're a dom, aren't you? I just knew immediately. I just knew it. And she goes, yes. And I've been thinking about you since I started here, and I'm going to get you in and, so you can start training. Yeah. And I was like, yes.
She's like, fuck these babies. I got a better gig.
Just pushed them off the sidewalk and I walked right into the dungeon. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's okay. I respect children. I don't.
The kids were safely taken back to the parents' house.
Right, yeah. So, in the next few days, I went in for an interview at the dungeon, and per my friend's recommendation and her reference, and that's how I started. And they do training there too. So it was like an 8-shift training. It was basically like 8 full days. I think I did my training in like 10 weeks, honestly, because I was like, because it's not like a paid training, So I was.
Oh, really? Okay.
You get tips.
Okay.
You get tips, right?
What is it? Yeah. What's the training look like? I guess how's that work? I guess.
Yeah. So at that dungeon, it's a lot of like there aren't many dungeons that have mistresses on shift these days. Most dungeons are just like private rental, and this dungeon is one of the few remaining ones where you can like go on the website and you're like, oh, who's there today? And you can just call up and be like, I want to see Mistress Ophelia, Yeah. And so it was a really great experience because there was always someone there, and you get trained in not only like how to use the equipment and how to take care of the equipment, how to clean things, all the inventory, like how to do the laundry. You also get trained in skills like biohazard containment and like biohazard cleanup, because this is, in the kink and BDSM world, you're doing all kinds of shit.
Yeah. Clean up blood.
Clean up dick blood, like how do you do it safely? So you get trained in all those types of things. Also just like how to, flog someone safely. And so you learn that. You also learn how to work the phones, how to, be a receptionist and do the booking and like, quote people the rates. And
it's like Padawan kind of thing. Like you're like a...
Wait, is that a Star Wars reference?
Star Wars? The little Jedis,
yes.
Training under the big Jedis.
Totally.
Until they can become Jedis themselves.
And so while you're there, learning all these things, you're also supposed to be available for walk-ons. Okay. Which is you ask, a more senior mistress if you can do a walk-on on their scene and be a part of their session for a little bit, for like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
And that's... so you can just kind of start to learn how things go in scene, and have some interaction with clients. And, the mistress will ask their client if he's okay with it. And then you can, and then she'll tell you when to come in. You get dressed up and you go into the scene for 10 to 15 minutes and you have like a little, double mistress scene for a little bit.
Hell yeah.
And that's how you start to learn.
When you're initially like training, are you training on like clients or is it you're training on who, I guess?
Yes.
Clients. Okay. Sweet.
On clients. So as long as the client is comfortable with it and you're also supervised by the more senior mistress in the scene. So, if you know that someone's got a fisting scene coming up and you haven't tried fisting yet, you'd say, oh, please, mistress, can I do a walk on your scene?
Okay.
And she'll say, oh, okay, wonderful. Let me ask. And if the client's okay with it, and they usually are, because everyone loves
to get to see two beautiful people.
Obviously. Like, and, people love new faces and, the innocence too. Like people love it. They eat it up. They're like, yes, bring in someone new, and, I think the first time I fisted someone actually was when I was just doing a walk on and we held hands.
Oh, the double fist.
Inside of his ass.
That is amazing.
Isn't that sweet? I know.
It's so warm and just...
Right.
That's so great. Hell yeah.
So, that's kind of how you start to get practice and,
So, how long did you work at the dungeon? Let's
see here. Started there in 2018. 2 years, and then COVID happened.
Oh, okay.
So...
2 years
after 2020, I cannot. I don't know time anymore. So roughly 2 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How did you get into companionship? So you start nobbing. Mm-hmm. When do you say I kind of want to do companionship as well? What's that look like? I guess.
Well, at the dungeon, we have common spaces where the mistresses hang out and stuff. So we're all, we sit around the table and we're talking about stuff. And so I just hear things that other people are doing, seeking arrangements. Okay. I'm sure everyone knows about that place at this point. and, just other ways that you can, make money
Yeah.
doing sex work. And on Seeking Arrangements, I was aware that, like, was a thing that people were into, that they are going to want to have sex, and it pays more. So I was like, okay, well, let me, like, check this out. Let's see what happens, see who I meet.
Yeah.
But it was, like, really, like, you had to be really, if you were working at the dungeon, like, the headmistress was not cool. Like, she would not let you work there if she found out that you were on Seeking Arrangements, or if you were doing escorting.
Oh, even if it was outside the business, you weren't. Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, she was, like, really paranoid about anything coming back to her website.
Okay.
And if she's advertising you on her website, but you're, like, escorting, even in your own personal life, like, who knows, it could come back to her. She didn't want to get slapped with some kind of, like, charge of, pimping and pandering or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
So she, like, took that really seriously. And even though some of the people, like, still hush hush on the down low or whatever. And so I was doing that a little bit. Yeah, through Seeking Arrangements. Every once in a while I'd get a date, I didn't really find any, like, actual sugar daddies who actually wanted to be a sugar daddy and just, like, give me money for looking cute.
Where you at? Where you at, dog?
If you're out there, if you're listening, please. It's the Blythe Show at protonmail.com.
Hit her up.
Right, yeah.
Send us some money for looking cute. What you doing?
Yeah.
You a baller.
Don't talk about it, be about it. Yeah. No, but I did find some fun dates, here and there on Seeking Arrangements. But of course that site's kind of weird too, and, like, I got kicked off enough times where I was just like, all right.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I think I didn't start advertising on, like, Tryst as a companion until, like, a year and a half ago, maybe.
Okay.
So, again, 2020 is such a blur, but
Yeah.
it was when I was starting to, like, phase out of the dungeon a little bit that I was like, okay. But I was originally just advertising on Tryst, like, as with a BDSM ad.
Okay.
And then I eventually, like, switched it over to an escort ad.
Okay.
But they're the same price, which is cool.
Oh,
Because a lot of websites will charge you more to advertise as an escort.
Yeah.
Like 3 times as much.
Oh, boy.
So yeah, I think I wanted to get into escorting more because it felt like I could be myself a little bit more, like, as a mistress, it's much, I'm putting on a character a little bit more, depending on the client, depending on the scene, but it does get, like, it gets to be really exhausting. I find that I'm more exhausted from dom work than doing like, companion dates.
Yeah.
So I was like, diversify a bit,
Yeah.
But I still really love doing dom work.
Yeah. What do you feel like your biggest challenge was starting out in doming, starting out in companionship? Mm-hmm. What's your biggest challenge?
I'd say the most challenging thing is dealing with mean people.
Okay.
Like, the most emotionally challenging, which then, affects other, it's when something's emotionally challenging, it affects, your ability to do, like, or it can be challenging in other ways too, like, if it's emotionally challenging, then maybe you're going to avoid it. So now it's a financial issue, you know what I mean? So it's like dealing with mean people is really hard. or just, not even necessarily dealing with them, but receiving that type of energy from people.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily want to engage with people when they're being mean-spirited, but it's still, like, it affects you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like bartending, like, most people are having a good time.
Yeah.
But every once in a while you get that really angry drunk.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it's like, sure, after a while you've got a little bit thicker skin, but it's still just like
I feel like
bums you out,
there's a way to to where you can deflect it, but still I feel like if you still absorb a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Another challenge is just representing yourself on paper sometimes for housing, for civilian jobs, if you're trying to get a little part-time gig, you know what I mean? It's do I tell them? Do I not tell them? How do I explain this gap in my resume? And then, landlords wanting proof of income.
Yeah.
Things like that. That's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it establishing yourself? Because when you're working in the dungeon, I guess, is it mainly through you working shifts and then people basically coming in on that shift?
Right.
And then, okay, how is it then when you're going and you're independent, working as a companion, you're solely relying on your ads?
Right.
How is it establishing yourself independently versus, where you're not relying on this already existing clientele?
So the dungeon was really great because it had been, it's still there in Oakland. It's been there for 25 years at this point.
Nice.
So there was a huge client base that were just regulars to that dungeon specifically, and guys would come in who've, seen every mistress for 20 years now, which is incredible. So I had been successful enough at that dungeon where some clients followed me even after I became independent.
Okay.
So that worked out well. And also with wrestling, I got a lot of regulars and just fans through wrestling.
Okay.
And I was even able to tour Europe twice.
Really?
Just wrestling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, let's talk the wrestling, right? Are you throwing legs? You got some long legs?
Yes.
Are you throwing legs? Okay.
Yes, obviously. Nice chop,
Awesome. Okay.
Axe chop.
How did wrestling happen? How'd you start doing that?
Okay. Well, I started at the dungeon. Okay, so at the dungeon, every mistress has a yes/no list.
Okay.
It basically says the things that you offer or don't offer, and for the things you offer, how you offer them or to what degree, etc. So when you're doing phones and you're at the receptionist desk, you have everyone's yes/no list in front of you.
Okay.
So when someone calls and says, "Oh, I'd like to see Mistress Liv for a golden shower," you say, "Oh, actually, no, she doesn't provide that. Sorry," or
Yeah.
And on the yes/no list is wrestling.
Okay.
And the dungeon had wrestling mats and a room that, the wrestling happens in. It wasn't specifically for wrestling, but it was just the room that was big enough for the mats.
Yeah.
And when I did my yes/no list when I was starting out, I was nah, I don't really. I said no, I'm not interested. But when I was training, there was another mistress on shift who had a wrestling session coming up, and she said, "Do you want to do a walk-on to my wrestling session?
Yeah.
Are you going to be offering wrestling?" And I said, I originally thought that no, I'm not going to offer it, but you know what? I want to see what it's about. Sign me up. I'll do a walk-on for your, wrestling session coming up. And so, I halfway through her session, I just put on a little sports bra and some shorts or something, and I go up there, and she's, in her little wrestling outfit with the guy. And
before this, do you have any kind of experience wrestling at all? Are you...
I'm athletic.
Okay.
I'm scrappy.
Okay.
I have done some martial arts,
okay,
but not really wrestling.
Okay.
And when I did martial arts, it was more for fitness, not necessarily for competing or anything,
Sweet.
But I am scrappy.
I feel like that's probably...
I feel like that's better than...
factor,
exactly. So it's even though when I initially saw wrestling on the yes/no list and I was kind of averse to it, I wouldn't necessarily back down from a real life wrestling match. I don't know, but I'm scrappy. So anyway, I go up and for the wrestling walk on, and I get in there, and this dude is definitely heavier than me, and the other mistress was just like, all right, like, take him out, Blythe. And he's like, he's there.
Like, you think you could take me?
Yeah, he's there. He's like definitely underestimating me,
Okay.
and thinks that it's just going to be more playful.
Okay.
But as soon as it was time to go, I just like took him out, and I just like, it's like I saw red, like I could not stop, and like my internal monologue was just like, you are not losing, like you are, like this is,
oh God.
So I was like, maybe this is for me, because that was just like my immediate response was like, no way I'm gonna lose this wrestling.
But I feel like anybody, like if I'm booking a wrestling thing, I'm like, I feel like I want you to try to win. You know, I don't want, I'm
right.
like 100%.
Yeah. That's the fetish of it is mostly guys who are submissive and enjoy being overpowered.
Yeah. I'm about to get pinned, and it's going to be great.
Who enjoy being choked, who enjoy being, squeezed.
Should I wrap the legs around, hit him with the cross? Yep. Oh, yeah.
And some of the wrestling guys are actual fighters too, and they train, and they and like I'll see really big guys too who are actually just really want me to choke them with my feet. These big buff guys, and secretly they just want feet in their face. Which is so adorable to me, I think, and so they'll actually show me moves in the session and show me how to kick their ass better.
Ooh, that's good.
I know, that's like such a win-win-win.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just like really took to it once I started.
After the first one, you're like, I want to do that again.
Yes.
We're adding it to the list immediately.
Yes. So I changed it. I changed my yes no list, updated my online yes no list and stuff, and I started getting more wrestling sessions. I think just because I do have like kind of an athletic build, and I think that the sporty look just like looks good on me, you know? So I think, once I started posting pictures of, hot sports bra and the shorts and stuff, I think it just really worked for me. Yeah. In terms of like marketing. Okay. I think people saw it and they were like, oh yeah, that's it right there. So once that happened, I just started getting more and more wrestling sessions, and then someone finally told me about some wrestling platforms.
Sweet.
And I started advertising on some specific wrestling platforms, and then it just really took off from there. So
do you feel like is wrestling the most popular
in terms of like the other fetishes and kinks and stuff that I get booked for? It is really popular, actually. It's quite popular. Like I said, I toured Europe twice just wrestling, and I've even toured a couple other states wrestling. And before COVID, I had like a couple tours planned in spring of 2020 just for wrestling.
That's
so
amazing.
It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm here for it,
Yeah.
I don't need to know why, but like, if you want that, then like, it's totally cool. It's a lot of fun too. It's just, I find that a lot of the wrestling clients are just some of the easiest people to communicate with, and are just like really easygoing. And it's just a lot of fun.
Do people ever take it too seriously? Are there people that are like, I want to win so bad?
I'm sure there are. I don't really I try to avoid those people because you can kind of tell what, when they're making their inquiry and stuff, because I'll get emails, they're like, oh, like, how about this challenge, and like, if you can pin me this many times, I'll throw down this much extra money, and and I'm just like, okay, no, like, I'm competitive but not like that, like I'm here to win. And like, because I'm still a dom, I'm like, and it is like, that is most of what that wrestling is, like I'll do competitive sessions with people who are my weight, but it's
like, we're not me and you, it's like I'm a lot heavier than you, it's like it's,
and so there are those like physical aspects that like you have to consider when you're doing any type of martial art, really. Even like a rigged match. It's still like, it's not fun if if one person's just like totally,
Yeah.
like using their, being like an unfair advantage or something, you know what I mean? Like it's more fun if we play by my rules, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
So yeah, there are people who have that attitude, and I just don't really book with them because I can tell going into it,
Okay.
And it's like, nah.
Is there an average clientele in, doming, companionship, wrestling? Is it like, is there an average clientele? Does it differ based on what you're, I guess, providing?
Yeah, so like most of my dom clients are, submissive. So, yeah, I'd say that. Well, okay, wait. What do you mean?
I guess maybe demographics, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe like.
Well, the wrestling clients, I get a lot of lawyers.
Okay.
And lately, in wrestling, I've been getting a lot of like really buff black guys who really like feet.
Really? Nice. Shout out to the black dudes on the podcast. This is a podcast like an feet. What up, dubs?
And that's been like a little bit more recently in the past year or so. Like I don't ask people what they look like or like, when I'm booking with them. I don't really care. But then like a few sessions in a row, I'm getting like very similar people, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what it is right now, but all right. Okay. I'm here for it. And like, so who specifically like foot chokes?
Foot chokes. What's a foot choke?
Okay, lay down.
Guess.
I'm just kidding. Basically, I choke them with my feet.
Okay.
So like, I'll put my feet like around their neck, like crossed like this, and then I'll just go like that, and just like.
Shit. Okay, the foot. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, I knocked your notes over. Sorry. You got it.
It is a foot choke. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's another piece of paper down there. I'd say overall the clientele is like, older. Got more money to spend.
Yeah.
Get a lot of lawyers.
Okay.
I think I try to attract people who are interested in what I'm interested in, so that's what I advertise is the things that I'm interested in and that I truly enjoy. So I'm hoping that attracts the type of people who are also,
Yeah.
It just can be more fun that way.
Okay, that makes sense. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So on your ads, right, you advertise as like a companion, but like a dominant companion, right? What is that? I guess what is a dominant companion? What does that look like? I guess versus a quote unquote like normal companion. I guess if you want to say that.
Okay, so I just feel like I have a dominant persona. Like I don't get along well with guys who are alpha male types. Okay. You know what I mean? Who are just like, get on the bed,
Yeah.
Or whatever. I'm not like I've never had a client who's like that. Well. Wait. On Seeking Arrangements, I met a few like that, and I wasn't advertising as a dominant person. Or Seeking Arrangements isn't, for advertising, let's say. But on my profile, I think I said something like dominant to most, submissive for some. And
sounds like a challenge.
I think that's how some people took it. And like in the world of kink and BDSM, like I enjoy being on the more submissive side with some people. It really depends though. And so I say I'm a dominant companion because I feel like that just comes through. Like I come from I just want people to know what they're getting. Yeah. Right? So like I come from a mistress background, and it just comes through sometimes. Yeah. Even when I was, before I even started doing any dom work, I would talk to my friends and say, I'm thinking about this. And they were like, oh, that's perfect for you. Because I'm just like, I command, I like things to be my way.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So as a dominant companion, I just have more fun with people who are willing or who also enjoy giving up a little bit of control.
Okay.
You know, and who are open to playing with that power dynamic with me.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm just not going to have a good time with someone who's, a dominant alpha male or whatever, because that's just like not what I'm into.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even date someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are really into it, good. That's great. Being submissive is super hot too. But I like to let people know what they're in for. Is that don't come over here thinking that you're going to boss me around.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And also, if you like to be bossed around, please come here.
People, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, it's getting hot in here. So now it's the reveal.
That's great.
I wore this shirt just for you.
Thank you.
For those of you who aren't in the studio with us right now, which would be everyone who's listening, my shirt says "Money makes me come."
That's.
I wore this out actually here in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I was a little bit nervous about wearing this shirt out in public.
It's Atlanta, you know what I'm saying?
And I learned real quick that it's totally cool. It was like...
You go to Marietta, you go a little north, you go a little south, you go a little east, go a little west, might turn some heads. But this is the A. We're like, oh, fuck yeah.
That's exactly... I got people commenting on it, and everyone who... It was just like... I had a handful of people who were like, oh, that shirt's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, yes.
So... Back to the wrestling real quick, right?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite move? Favorite wrestling move?
Yes.
Okay.
The foot choke.
The foot choke. Okay.
I love the foot choke. I also love, let's see here. Oh yeah, I love the grapevine.
The grapevine?
Yes.
What's the grapevine?
That's where you're on top of someone, like stomach to stomach, basically, and you wrap your legs around their legs, and it forces
their legs out.
Yeah.
Okay, we used to call that the Saturday Night Ride in high school.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that, and I also like. I can't usually make people tap with that one.
Okay.
But it is, if someone's not very flexible, it's very awkward for them.
Okay.
And it's also just like a sexy move because you're like pressing onto them and like, put your tits in their face or something. But then I also love leg chokes,
Okay.
What do they call it? The scissor chokes,
okay,
scissor holds,
yeah.
stuff like that. That's usually like a big favorite with clients too.
Yeah.
Getting their, my ass is just like right in their face and they're just getting squeezed with my thighs. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Who doesn't love that?
Who does?
I do some girl on girl wrestling too.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how hot it was to be choked the fuck out until I wrestled with another wrestler, who does. And we're still good friends, and I still get flustered when I think about her. I'll probably text her later. But the first time I did a girl-on-girl wrestling session, it was with a mutual client, and so we were wrestling, me and the other provider, and then we would do like round robin, and then we'd like each wrestle him or whatever.
Okay.
But she was like kicking my ass, and like I was so
I feel like that has to be
it.
great. Yeah,
I was
amazing.
like, oh yes, please. She's like a little bit smaller than me, but like extremely fast and like incredible thighs.
Shout out to her.
Hey! Shout out to Roxanne in LA. What's up? I miss you.
Oh man. What so you're in Atlanta now. Mm-hmm. How is it breaking into a new market? How's that been, I guess?
So far so good. You know. I feel like there's always like a little spike when you're new somewhere.
Yeah.
Or when you're like new on a certain platform, because people love like, you know, it's like that not beginner's luck, but like, you know, people love like a new face. They're like, oh, cool, you know.
I mean, especially too, like to where, you know, a lot of offerings that people have are like singular, you know, like I offer companionship, I offer doming,
Right.
you know, but you're like, I offer companionship, I offer doming, I offer wrestling. People are like, yes, what? Okay, yes.
I mean, that's what I hope. I worry that it's maybe like too confusing or like intimidating to some people, or they're like, I don't know what you're gonna do to me. Like,
But I feel like when people go to a buffet, it's like it's still like you know, there's so like there's so many things.
yeah,
it's
let's
never
do it
bad.
all.
It's never
Right, yeah.
bad. It's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, like, you know, I saw a client earlier today who was wanting it all.
Yeah.
You know,
See, that's
So it was like, you know, he likes being told what to do. He likes a little bit of wrestling and like, you know, being pinned down. And then he also wanted to fuck. So it was like,
hey,
what's up?
the best of all the worlds.
Right, yeah. So yeah, in the new market, I guess I'm finding that Atlanta's like a really sex work friendly place.
Yeah.
You know, the strip clubs are legendary, obviously, and then you know, I've just met strangers. So since I've been here, people have been approaching me and just telling me I have like a glow about me. I don't know. They're like, I've just been approached a lot since I've been here. I think it's because I'm just like stoked to be here, or something. But I'm a terrible liar also, and people they just want to ask me what I do. You know, they're like, oh wait, like what's up with you? Like, you know, you look so so cool and you know, like happy or whatever. Like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I'm new here. You know, they're like, oh, what do you do? Like,
Well.
So
So you have the internet. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Do you have Twitter? Okay.
So my line is, I just say, well, I'm a professional lover. And because I'm a terrible liar. Like, I like, and especially on the moment, like I'm going to slip up if I try to lie, and just like, it's just going to be awkward. And so I just say that, and perfect strangers are just like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a card? This happened to me the other day.
See, the cards, I feel like that's like...
I was like, no, but you could walk with me. He was a barber, and I was walking by, and he came out of his barber shop.
Nice.
And he wanted to talk to me, so I just figured, you know, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So, whatever.
What do you feel like your favorite part of sex work is? And least favorite?
Ooh.
Favorite and least favorite. Yeah.
Ooh. So my favorite part is making people feel good.
Oh, yeah.
I think, okay, so in Dom world, you're doing a lot of crazy stuff, I guess. You're doing a lot of, you know, not what people would think of like making someone feel good. Like, you know, some people are into pain, some people are into being degraded, etc. But at the end of a scene, you're fulfilling someone's need or fantasy or whatever. And so that part's always really cool to be able to create the space where someone can be either who they are or like a character who they want to be.
Yeah.
That they don't have any other space to do that in, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people are very closeted about their kinks or, you know, stuff like that. So it's so cool to be able to create that space for people. And, it's just magical, you know? Yeah. So my favorite part about sex work is, just making people feel good, making people feel safe and desired, and also, like, living like a goddess sometimes, you know? Like, getting flown places, like, travel, you know? I traveled a lot before sex work, too, but, like, when I was touring, doing wrestling, I was like, I'm literally living my childhood. Like, I used to watch, like, WWE and stuff when I was a kid, so I was like, like, it's not the same type of wrestling, but still, I was like, I feel like a rock star right now, you know? And, you know, not everyone's sex work experience is like that. we have to talk about class and stuff, and like, people are out there doing survival sex work, and that's totally legit too. But to be able to have a favorite part of sex work is a huge privilege, and I'm happy that I am privileged enough to have like a favorite part of sex work, and that it's not just like something that is one of few options or like my only option or something. So I guess my least favorite part about sex work, I guess, honestly, it's probably the booking process. Because when you're talking to these horny guys and you're like, I just need you to focus for like a few more minutes so we can like get through this administrative stuff, and don't blow your load yet, and just stick with me, just like
focus. Focus.
We'll get to the fun stuff in a second. Just like, so the booking can be a little bit annoying, especially because, not everyone is the same level of communication. Like you sometimes have to ask people for stuff several times. It can be kind of a drag. But yeah, I guess and sex work can be really exhausting too. So there is like a lot of I have to be really aware of myself and my own energy and emotional availability too. So it can feel hard to sustain as like a full-time thing. Like I like much respect to sex workers who are working, full time. Like I was doing that for a while, and I don't think I could do that again. Like I really try to space it out, and that's kind of why I switched to escorting too, is because it pays more.
Okay.
So I don't have to work as much.
Okay.
To make like, the same amount of money or whatever.
How is it? I know you said, I feel like you said like I guess the emotional side of doming is like a little bit higher than it would be for companionship. Did I get that right? Or
it can be, okay. It takes a lot of focus and just like to be like convincingly mean and degrading. You know what I mean? So like being in that character is really what takes it out of me emotionally. Even though that this is like what the person wants. Yeah. I have to like come down from that for a while afterwards, because it's like it's just a tense and charged space to be in. So
say like you are like degrading somebody, and this is like what they like. They like this, right?
Yes.
Do you ever feel bad? Is it ever like, I felt bad for saying this thing or doing this thing? Because they are like getting joy out of this. Like they like this thing.
Well, no. I don't feel bad because there is a negotiation beforehand.
Okay.
We talk about things that are not okay.
Because you have the boundaries. We
talk about where the line is, and because with humiliation or degradation, there's different levels of it too. Some people want to be, or rather, some people are physical masochists and some people are emotional masochists. So
it's like, you can do X, Y, and Z, but just don't tell me that you don't think my jokes are funny. Like that's the line. It's like this,
right.
but it's like,
you
think I'm funny.
Totally, yeah.
It's like,
and if I know that the scene is going to be really heavy, like I always make time for aftercare in the scene too. So it's like, and before we go into scene, I tell people, like, you can stop this at any point.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're going to need to stop, like, or if it's getting to that point, like, let me know.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, I don't feel bad, and I think that's why I'm good at it.
Oh
yeah. Because it also just feels really good as a woman to be able to seriously look dudes in the eye and tell them how pathetic they are. And that's a tame version, right? That's a tame version.
Thank you.
Or, it honestly, like, it can be, like, you don't want to lose control, in that moment where you feel like this is a good outlet, like you have to maintain professionalism, you can't just like totally vent or like let go completely onto someone, you know, even emotionally, that would be inappropriate, but it does feel good. You know,
no, fuck yeah.
Especially like at the dungeon where, you know, you're booking them and they're annoying on the phone and they're like just an asshole, you know, they're just like saying stuff that it's just like, you know, and then they get there and you're like, okay, you know. It's but again, yeah, like coming down and coming out of that space, it definitely takes some time after the session to sort of like come back to myself.
Yeah.
You know, and like remind myself that like, oh no, like I'm also tender and soft too, you know, like, because sometimes it's like you scare yourself.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
You're like,
I don't know.
Holy shit. Like,
Coming to a place I wasn't ready for, but hey, we're here.
Right, yeah, you know, you learn a lot about yourself and like things that you're capable of.
Yeah.
And things that you can, like places that you can go to for other people.
Okay.
You know, so like I wouldn't necessarily really go searching for people who I could be degrading to.
Okay.
But if someone came to me asking me for that, then it's like, okay, like I can facilitate this for
sweet.
you. You know, like I'm not out there like trying to find people to just like, you know.
Yeah. You're on the street just like, ooh, that guy. I'm coming for you, dog. You don't even fucking know. I'll make you cry, bro.
Seriously. Well, I mean, it's kind of cool how doming has affected my personal life. Like through being a mistress, I just found a certain type of confidence in my everyday life where it was like, I'm not making excuses for other people anymore. Yeah. Like, no.
Yeah.
So I appreciate dom work for that aspect where it's just like, you learn how to control people with your mind sometimes. and like how to command presence and like,
do you ever feel like this? Like, do you feel like that when you're just like in your everyday life, you have a superpower that nobody knows about?
Yeah, totally. You know, and I know it's real.
Yeah,
it's a real superpower. I swear.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like when you're a trained fighter. You know, like you walk into spaces differently because you know that if someone fucks with you,
yeah.
Or you're just like not really worried about it as much, you know, and like dom work is similar in that way where it's like I have more confidence in my like mental I don't know, just more. I just feel like way more like self-assured.
Okay.
In certain ways, I've always been kind of a confident person, but doming definitely like really polished that up.
Fuck yeah.
And yeah, it's cool, you know, the dom superpowers.
Yeah. How long do you see yourself in sex work?
As let's see here, you know, I think it's a great. I see myself doing it for a while, particularly as just like more of a side gig.
Okay.
You know, I think that like the way I feel now is I don't see any reason to stop completely.
Yeah.
You know, like it can be great for supplementing other things, you know, and right now it is my main gig until I make it in comedy. Yeah. But yeah, I know plenty of like mature providers too who are still like doing their thing, and I think that's great. I love that you can do that in sex work, you know, and like and just like my lifestyle, I don't like having a boss. I like to travel and move around. I like making my own schedule, you know, so it really works for me. Yeah. And in those ways. So yeah, I see myself doing sex work kind of like indefinitely right now, you know. Yeah. You know, when my book takes off too, we'll see. Yeah.
And I mean, if you're like this stand-up comedy career, right, you're gonna have to support it because you don't make money, right? You know? So that's like, you can't stop.
That's what I heard.
So, comedy, we talked about it a little before. You're a fan.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love comedy.
Do you have a favorite comedian at all?
Okay, have you heard of Aparna Nancherla?
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, yes, I love her. Let's see here, who else? Well, when I was a kid, I loved like Eddie Izzard,
Okay, yeah.
and gosh, who else? Oh, now I'm blanking, of course, but
We got a Parna. We got it.
well, okay. I mean, I loved. I would rent, like, at that same video store, I would rent like comedy VHS, and I would get like the old who's the famous Eddie?
Oh, Eddie Murphy.
Yes, God.
Okay.
I'm a stoner. So like growing up, like I would watch Eddie Murphy, and I would watch oh my gosh, Wanda Sykes.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
And I'm sure there's some other people, you know. Was it Titus? I used to watch Titus.
Oh yeah. That dude can tell a story. Like
Right.
he's
Yes,
good.
I love
He's good at telling
storytelling.
stories.
Yeah.
Like,
Dimitri Martin.
okay. Nice.
I recently got into Eliza Schlesinger.
Yeah, Schlesinger.
Yeah. She's pretty funny, especially her like rants that she does like on social media. Yeah.
She's so high energy too. So I think she's coming in like September or October to Atlanta.
Ooh,
I think she is.
okay. Cameron Esposito.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, there's so many comedians out there.
You gotta come to a show. You gotta go to a show.
I don't think I've ever been to a live. Well, I've been to some friends' live comedy shows,
Okay.
but I don't think I've ever seen any big names live.
Okay.
But yeah, I love comedy. I think that, you know, in my like imagination, I have like all these sacred archetypes that exist in the world and in society, and like the sacred clown, the jester,
Yeah.
like that is such an important role in you know, my view of society.
Yeah.
Because you can really get into all kinds of topics. You can really like bridge gaps if you can get people to laugh about stuff, because
Yeah.
it's like then you have a common ground. If you can get someone to laugh about something that they maybe were uncomfortable talking about beforehand,
Yeah.
now it's like you've broken the ice, you've opened up like a safer space, because it's like, oh, we're just joking here.
Yeah.
You
'Cause,
know?
I mean, I feel like if people are laughing, then they're on ease, you know, and it's like not like people
Yes.
are more pliable when they're laughing, but they are. You know, it's
Pliable. I love that word. Yeah, and I just think it's important too that we laugh at ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
that we don't take ourselves too seriously.
like if you can't laugh at yourself, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
If you're not farting and laughing, what are you doing?
Right,
You know,
yeah.
It's like, come on. Right.
Well, that's one of my favorite parts about sex work too, is it's just so funny sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
sex is funny, you know?
Do you have a story you want to leave the people on? Do you have a story?
Oh my gosh.
Do you have a favorite wrestling match?
Ooh. Yeah. Favorite wrestling match. I wrestled this guy he was Irish, and we wrestled in England, and he was like almost 7 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. And he flew from Ireland to Manchester, England to see me,
Wow.
which is like an hour.
But hey, you got to go through customs. You
Yeah.
got to go through the airport. You got to get on a plane. You got to get off a plane.
Right.
There's things that happen, you know.
Sure. You're right. Yes, it was a big deal. But I loved him so much because, okay, I'm just a sucker for the Irish. I always have been. That some people think it's a goofy accent. Me, it's just like a panty dropper. I'm shameless. So he was probably like 7 foot tall, and you know, I'm 5'9". But he was like so sweet and so goofy, and tipped me like he booked a 3-hour session.
Oh, wow.
Wrestling session, first of all, you know. And the wrestling venue was this place in Manchester, England, that's like just for sexy wrestling. Like it's a huge warehouse with like all kinds of different wrestling rooms and like a boxing ring, and like it's for private rentals, you know, people can use it for their personal stuff, but they also rent to pros. And it was so funny because like we get there and it's like this old warehouse, so I'm like, what the fuck is going on? You know, there's like pigeons in the corridor and stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, what is going on? I get there and there's like a big boxing ring with like all these different countries' flags all around it. And I'm like, okay, you know, and we like, I'm looking around and there's like, okay, here's our room. And like the shower's not working for some reason. There's like no hot water. Like things are kind of like not falling apart, but I'm just like, all right, you know, it's got character, you know, it's got character. And there's like all kinds of cool photos on the walls of just like buff chicks, like just crushing dudes. And like, just like, I was like, all right, cool. I can dig it. And I'm wrestling this guy who's like 7 feet tall and like super dorky and like really lanky and goofy. And we're just having a blast. Right. And he wants to, you know, raise the stakes a little bit. And he says, okay, he says, all right, Blythe, you're too good at this. And he's like, we've got to handicap you. You know, I was like, okay, like bring it on, you know? So he ties my hands behind my back.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm in character, you know, so I'm like, all right, like bring it on. Like, no problem. Like, I'm gonna take you down so fast. And I've got my arms behind my back, and he's such a bad wrestler that like I literally make him tap in like 2 minutes, you know, even with my arms behind my back or whatever. And then on top of the 3-hour session, he like tipped me the same amount
nice.
that he paid for the session, you know, so it was just like a great session overall. And then he took me out to dinner too. I was like starving. I was like, all right, let's go get some food. So I don't know, that was like a really sweet wrestling match, you know, and turns out he has like a heart condition and like he's probably not going to live very long.
Oh God. But
that's the depressing ending.
But he got to wrestle the one, the only.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, hell yeah. Like you live your life, friend. Like I'm so glad that I got to like, you know,
hell yeah,
kick your ass.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I guess, yeah, that was like a really sweet wrestling session.
It's a great story.
You know, it's wholesome.
The accent you had, like you're too good at this.
I've been working on it. You know, I've been perfecting it in the mirror. Yeah, I guess I don't have too many like super crazy stories, but yeah.
That's great.
Oh.
I
do have some like artsy things that I've done before where I like had my whole head was like encased in like a plaster cast.
Okay.
For a session one time.
I don't know if this was your Twitter.
Probably.
Did you get like a body mold?
Yes.
Is that you? Okay.
I mean, we tried. I didn't post any pictures of the full body,
okay.
But I did post a picture of like, it looks so creepy. It's like, it's just like a plaster like cast over my entire head, and there's just like 2 breathing holes in my nose. And it was like over an hour that I was like, you know, I couldn't see. I had this whole thing over my head. It was like, I couldn't really hear that much. So it was like a lot of sensory deprivation. That was really cool. I'd never like really experienced anything like that. And I was so surprised that, you know, like when like things just come up and you'll surprise yourself. And I just got so horny. I was like, I didn't think that sensory deprivation would make me this horny, but like, I just feel so vulnerable, feel like a doll. Like, so that was like kind of cool. You know, sex work will just bring things up for you that you never like, you're like, oh wow. Like if you're just open to it, you know, like things will come up and,
go into places you never would have thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I mean, other than like holding hands in someone's ass, like.
Yeah, I mean, you started off strong with.
You
started off like. I feel like it's such a touching moment. Like you're like, we're together, we're bonded.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I feel like if someone's, you don't forget about a fist in your butt. I feel like. I wouldn't forget about it.
I love fisting.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. It's just so cool.
I've seen the videos.
Yeah, you know, like I put my foot up someone's ass too.
Nice.
Like I have a size 9.
Wow.
You know, so like I feel like that's really impressive.
But
fisting's just like, it just feels so nice in there. It's like real warm.
It's a nice glove. Just a nice...
Right, yeah. I have these long black latex gloves, and they're super sexy.
Nice.
They're like above the elbow.
Oh, okay.
But at the dungeon, we had these like veterinarian gloves that were just like, they look like those like very thin plastic cafeteria gloves.
Okay, yeah.
But like up to your shoulder.
Oh, okay.
They're made for like horse insemination or something, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So we had those at the dungeon, which were, they work. You do like you do like some regular latex gloves underneath and then that one over.
Okay. Okay.
But it is crinkly.
Yeah, definitely crinkly. It's still, it's doing the job.
Yeah, totally.
No one's disappointed.
Right, yeah.
All parties are happy,
Pretty much, yeah. Of course, when you leave, I'm going to think of like the most incredible story.
Oh, man. Blythe, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming to the podcast.
I
It's
appreciate
been so much fun.
you.
Oh,
This
my
has
God.
been so fun. Yes.
I can't wait for people to hear this.
Oh my gosh.
They're going to love this.
Who's going to hear this?
I think people listen to the podcast. I'm not sure, but
You've been told that they...
I've been told that people listen to the podcast.
Yay!
I don't know who they are, but they listen. Where can these anonymous phantom people find you on social media? Where can they find you?
On Twitter, I believe my handle, I'm pretty sure it's mistress_Blythe.
Correct.
Thanks for verifying that for me. Yes. So find me on Twitter, Mistress Blythe. I'm also on Instagram, at The Blythe Show. And Blythe is spelled Blythe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, my IG is private, though. So, if you don't have a legit looking account, then just send me a message or something.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Blythe, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hell yeah.
I'm so glad we got to meet.
Me too. Fuck yeah.
It's so fun to talk about this stuff, just in like a casual setting or whatever.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you making the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Listeners, we will be back later. That was my interview with Blythe Rex. Yo, shout out Blythe. I appreciate you coming to the podcast. It was so much fun. Listeners, she just plugged it. You can find her on Twitter at mistress_Blythe, her Instagram at The Blythe Show. I'll have links to both of those in the show notes. Hit the show notes, click the links, show her some love. As always, you can find us on Twitter, on Instagram at Full Service Pod. I am at Tank Funkadelic. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to the podcast. You'll be alerted as soon as those new episodes drop every single Tuesday. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is through our Patreon. Each month, we have at least one exclusive Patreon episode. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/fullservicepod. I've said it before, if you subscribe to the Outcall tier of our Patreon, you will get the OnlyFans subscriptions of Sweet Haley Grace and Sophia Soma for a month. What do you subscribe to the Patreon? Such a good time. Ratings and reviews help so much for visibility for the show, so if you can, hit us with a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, write us a review. I will read it on the show. If you cannot do that, tell somebody about the podcast. Tell somebody you know, somebody you don't know. Tell somebody that's behind you in line at the grocery store. They don't know what you're talking about, but just say it a few times. Maybe they'll look it up afterwards. Maybe they'll just be baffled and be like, I gotta look it up now. So... This has been episode 94. I appreciate you being here. We will be back next week. Oh boy, what's happening? I got another interview for you. Who's it going to be? I will tweet about it. I will definitely tweet about it. So make sure you're following us there. But hey, that is all she wrote for today. I appreciate you being here. I will see you on Tuesday. Later. Full service.